Hello there, it's a silly moustache. My apologies for my absence due to some little domestic problems and this. I have a problem with my right hand at the moment. And of course we've all had some problems with YouTube's new policy of aggression against creators and watchers. But this is about I'm going to call it my romance with Collings guitars. So it seems only appropriate I put this hat on. I need to go back before my involvement with Collings. I'm just going to go back to 1975 when I achieved a guitar that I'd been looking at for a long time. It was a Martin D35, but it was a specific Martin D35 which I encountered being played by a fiddle player in a band that I worked in very briefly as a dobro player. And this D35 was special. It looked the same as all the others, but it had a sound like no other guitar, no other Martin that I'd encountered before, and I'd encountered a few. I eventually managed to get that, not from the fiddle player, but from the guy he sold it to. I kept it and played it for 21 years with no issues whatsoever. It was a lovely guitar. And then in 1996 I sold it to a friend because I had it in my head that I was in a successful trio at the time and I wanted a matched pair of Martin guitars. And so I got a J1240, 14 fret 12 string, and a J40, a jumbo, yeah. And although the dimensions were ostensibly the same as the D35, it just didn't fit me. I think the neck profile was more shallow or something. Started learning that, you really need to know what you need in a neck to make sure it fits you and your playing style. Started to learn. So I was doing a solo gig just opening for a gentleman called Isaac Guillory in 1996 and grumbling to him about how I was fluffing notes on my brand new J40 guitar. And he handed me his Martin D35/S-S, which was an original Martin design, 12 fret, 1/7/8 nut width. And he allowed me to play it for a while, and it solved all my problems straight away. So I commenced a search for a 12 fret dreadnought. Now we're talking about 1996, and we didn't have the search facilities then that we do now, and it took me a long time. I searched all over the UK in the best way that I could, and I even searched. I had a visit to New England, New Hampshire and Massachusetts for a while in 1999. No, it was 98, and had a couple of gigs there, and I searched around there, but I did find my way to the Music Emporium in Lexington, and a very nice gentleman, I think it was the owner, came to serve me, and I told him what I was looking for: Martin D18 2835/S -S, and he said, "No, I don't have anything like that apart from," and he pointed to a glass case, and in this glass case was the most beautiful instrument I've seen before or since, really, and it was a Collings. I'd never heard of Collings instruments. And it was a dreadnought, and it was a 12 fret, and it was in Adirondack and Brazilian rosewood and all the abalone you could crowd onto it. And so it was suitably expensive, of course. But that wasn't the main worry. The main worry was the Brazilian rosewood. Because even back then in 1998, I wasn't comfortable with the idea of trying to import a Brazilian rosewood guitar into the UK. Our customer's neck size was, I assumed, getting pretty strong about that, and I would hate for it to be confiscated or something like that. No, I didn't buy it. Besides, I'd never heard of this strange company called Collings. So I moved on, kept searching. The next year, 1999, I made a couple of expeditions into the West End of London, Shaftesbury Avenue, Denmark Street, all those areas where we had a proliferation of guitar shops. To no avail, and one day I took an extra tube train ride to Wapping, where there was a place called the Acoustic Centre. An Aladdin's cave of guitars, wonderful amount of stock, and there I encountered no 12 fret dreadnoughts, but a very enterprising and helpful sales guy called Seamus Brady, who I will gladly note, who asked me what I was looking for and said, "Oh, I'll make a note." I made a note. No, honestly, I didn't think I'd ever hear from him again, but 2 or 3 weeks later, he called me up and said, "If you're still looking for a 12 fret guitar, I've got something that might be of interest, and I suggest you come up and see me as soon as possible, and bring everything you could bear to part with," which is an interesting comment. My wife and I went up early on a Saturday morning, and he had in this little soundproofing room 4 guitars. He had a Martin HD28 VS, I think it was, a Santa Cruz D12, mahogany back and sides, a Bourgeois DS260, which was a beautiful instrument, and a Collings DS2H. A Collings, I've seen that name before. Apparently it was one of 2 Collings guitars that were the first ones to be shipped by Collings into a retailer in the UK. I later found out that Seamus Brady, the salesman, decided to keep the first one, and I got the second one. So I came home with that DS2H and played it for 21 years. So that's my first little involvement with Collings. It was a great guitar. It wasn't a problem at all. It worked very well. I will say that in 2002 I was offered a D35S, which I kept. It wasn't anything like the Collings DS2H. But I'm going to stop this now because I'm going to make this into 3 parts. So this is the end of part 1 of my romance with Collings guitars. And if you have been, thanks for watching. Look out for part 2.